Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kim. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that you will stick around by hitting that subscribe button down below. So today I am here with my very first tier ranking, and I am so excited to tier rank every single book that I read in 2020. Okay, so here we have my categories and 107 of the books that I read this past year. I left out like 4 of them because they just weren't really things that I think I can accurately rate or rank. So they're not on here, but we're going to be here a little while. So I hope you're tucked in with something to drink. So I have my categories here. I have new favorite, pretty self-explanatory. Would recommend is like those books that I really enjoyed but aren't necessarily a new favorite. Will probably forget is like I enjoyed it while I was reading it, but this won't stick with me at all. Meh, pretty self-explanatory. I did not feel great. I just felt kind of like meh or fine about this book. And absolute trash, obviously, is absolute trash. Okay, so let's get started. The first book that I have here is 11/22/63. I really enjoyed this book, and although it's not a new favorite, I would definitely recommend. An absolutely remarkable thing, favorite. Not a new one because I did honestly reread this year, but still a favorite. A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor. Would probably go under would recommend. I didn't love it as much as an absolutely remarkable thing, but it's still really good. Like I would still highly recommend this, especially if you loved the first book. Akata Witch, meh, like so overrated. I feel like I don't really understand why people love this book. Maybe it's just because I'm not like a big fantasy reader, but I thought it was pretty subpar. All In, this is one of the Naturals books. I think I read most of the series this year or like finished the series this year, earlier this year. And so this is going to go in would recommend. I really enjoy this entire series and would highly recommend it to anybody who enjoys serial killer stories or like kind of like true crime-ish fiction, like that whole like teens solving things and getting recruited to the FBI. Like this is that whole series. No, they're not excellently written, but they are still very enjoyable and bingeable in my opinion. All Summer Long, we'll probably forget. Like I enjoyed it while I was reading it and I wouldn't necessarily not recommend it. But I do feel like this is something that's not going to stick with me. Like I've already forgotten a lot about this story. American Street, meh. Like I don't get it. I thought it was super boring. Amy and Roger's Epic Detour. I feel like this is going to go under will probably forget. I wouldn't necessarily not recommend this, but it was very forgettable and really didn't live up to expectations. I think Morgan Matson has better books than this one. Anya's Ghost, meh. So boring. I just didn't enjoy this. I read it because it was a graphic novel and I wanted something quick to read and I thought I would enjoy it because it's about ghosts. But yeah, it wasn't that good, honestly. Like there are way better graphic novels out there. Aristotle and Dante. I talked about this in my worst books and honestly, like I know this is controversial, but absolute trash. I hated this book. I thought it was so bad. I don't get it. Babysitter's Coven, will probably forget. It was fine. It was enjoyable enough while I was reading it, but nothing memorable or anything that will like stick with me. Bad Blood, this is also part of the Natural series. And again, I would recommend this whole series. Ballad of Black Tom. I'm kind of like not sure if this should go in absolute trash or meh. I feel like it's not really absolute trash, though I thought it was crazy boring. I would still say meh about this one. I don't think I can classify it as trash. The Black Kids, This was pretty good. I would definitely recommend it. I wouldn't say it was like a favorite or anything, but it's something that I think will stick with me and that I would definitely recommend to others. This is the one that's about the Los Angeles race riots in 1992. And it's about like this main character that is experiencing this and some other issues in her own life. It's a YA book. Bloom, yeah, I would recommend. I really liked Bloom. I thought this was a quality graphic novel and that the art style was really beautiful. Bunny. So Bunny was honestly like, it wasn't that bad. I just don't think it worked for me. Like, I think it was kind of trash, but I feel like it was not trash for the whole time. Like, I feel like it started well. So I'm going to put this under meh. Like, it was fine. I don't know. Like, I feel like I liked it for the first 50%. So I can't really put it under absolute trash. Burn Our Bodies Down. Would recommend. This is a really solid YA book. I really like Rory Power's writing. It's kind of like a mystery / contemporary, and I thought it was really well done. Cabin at the End of the World. So this is one where, like, for most of the book, I thought I was going to give it 2 stars, and I almost DNF'd it because, honestly, like, I was super bored. And for, like, a home invasion story, like, it was pretty boring. But I ended up starting to like it in the latter 50%, but still like hated the ending. So let's put this under meh. It was fine. I had way higher expectations for it, and I don't really get the hype about that one. Carrie, absolute trash. I hated Carrie. And again, I respect Stephen King as a writer and enjoy a lot of his books, but I thought Carrie was trash. It was so boring and like just so poorly written, honestly. You can tell it's his first book ever. Chaos of Standing Still, would recommend for sure. Not a favorite necessarily, but definitely one that I would highly recommend. Yes. So I read like the first half of the Mortal Instruments series this year and had all intentions of reading the rest of them. And then I just got bored and never followed through on that. I probably will eventually return to the Shadowhunters world and finish the rest of these books, but I kind of like took a break from it. So City of Ashes, I don't even remember which one this was. I feel like it was the second or third book. I feel like all of these, this is a tough one because this probably falls, like this whole series kind of falls between will probably forget and would recommend. I don't necessarily think that they were bad, but I also feel like they're not great. Like they were fine. They were enjoyable enough. I definitely think they would go somewhere in here. But would I recommend this series? I'm going to go with Will Probably Forget. I do remember a good deal of the story, but I don't think it's something that memorable or worth saying like, yes, pick this up, because I just feel like at this point, it's such an old fantasy series and there are so many like better YA fantasy series out there now. City of Ghosts. Honestly, I thought these were pretty good for a middle grade series. They definitely were a little slow moving and less complex, but that's just the nature of middle grade. Unfortunately, I just feel like even like a couple months after reading this, like this is something I'm probably going to forget. Like they were enjoyable when I was reading them, but I don't really feel like it's something that I am going to like keep in my mind and say like, yes, I'll recommend this going forward, unless somebody was looking like specifically for a YA mystery or horror book. City of Glass, same thing. We'll probably forget. Pretty much that whole series is going to go there. Clown in a Cornfield. This is one that I feel like, again, it was like enjoyable, but it wasn't very memorable. So I'm going to put this under We'll Probably Forget. That is a YA slasher novel. I really wanted to like this because I'm like dying for some good YA horror books, but everything I've picked up so far just hasn't been that good. So yeah, it wasn't bad, but it also was pretty forgettable. Dare Me. Okay, so this was a weird one because I feel like this is Megan Abbott's like most loved book, and it wasn't necessarily my favorite of hers. However, I respect it for what it is. Like for what it is, it it does what it's trying to do. And I think it is a pretty good, like, creepy YA mystery, though I don't think it's for everyone because it's very, very, very heavily based in cheerleading. There's so much cheerleading jargon, and there is also a lot of mean girl stuff. So I don't necessarily think everyone would enjoy this book, but I do think I'll put this under would recommend, like, with caution. Like, I would recommend this to some people, but not necessarily like a general audience. Yes. Okay. I don't even know which one this is, but I attempted to do a reread of Twilight this year. Don't even ask me why. I don't know. I thought, hey, let me read Twilight again and see if I like it or if it's as trash as I remember it being. And yeah, I don't even know which book this is, but I feel like, is this Eclipse? I feel like this is Eclipse. If this is Eclipse, then it's absolute trash. I do have to say, like, I thought the first two books, Twilight and New Moon, were fine. Like, I wouldn't say they were as trash as Eclipse was. I never made it to Breaking Dawn because after reading Eclipse, I was like cringing so hard. I just literally couldn't. Because at that point, she's like chosen Edward, and I hate Edward, and I think he's like the worst boyfriend ever. And I just don't get people that are Team Edward. So, like, I don't know. Once like things turn and like Edward becomes like the main love interest, and like Jacob's out of the picture pretty much. And additionally, like, Edward is acting super controlling and crazy in this one, and Bella is so obnoxious. So, like, this is definitely by far the worst, I feel like, of the Twilight books. Okay, End of Everything. I also read this as my part of my Megan Abbott taste test, which hopefully will at some point be put up on my channel because I was having some issues with that vlog. But this one was very, very weird, and is definitely not something that I would recommend to a general audience. Like, this is something that I feel like has all kinds of trigger warnings and deals with like a very dark topic in a very weird way. So this is like a mystery about a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old, but it's like clearly written for adults, and it deals with like some pretty dark child-related topics. And so I definitely wouldn't recommend this to the general population. I do think some people could enjoy this. So I don't know. I'm going to put it under will probably forget. I don't really feel like this is something that's going to stick with me or that I enjoyed that much, but it was a little bit better than meh. Everything Leads to You. Okay, so this was like the Nina LaCour I read this summer. This was pretty good. I would definitely recommend this. It's a quality YA book, great representation, LGBTQ representation. I really enjoyed how this was like about Hollywood and the movie scene in LA. So I would definitely recommend that. I thought that was pretty quality. First Class Murder is one of the Murder is Bad Manners books. And they're all, I feel like, just kind of forgettable. These are books that like I enjoy while I'm reading them, and they're like a quick, easy read, but they don't really stick with me. They're just kind of fine. Get a life, Chloe Brown. I know. I'm sorry, but I thought this was absolute trash. This book was so cringy and so bad, and I really tried to understand why people love this, but I literally feel like I read a different book. It was so, so bad. I think about how much I cringed during this book, and I remember how much I hated it. Ghosted. I actually read this. I buddy read this with my best friend Jen. So shout out to Jen. This was, I don't know, it was fine. I feel like it was pretty forgettable though. I feel like while we were reading it, it was enticing enough because there was a mystery to it and I wanted to know what was happening. And it definitely had some like cliffhanger-esque scenes that kept me guessing. But overall, it was just kind of forgettable. Giant Days. This is a graphic novel series that I read the first book of and felt fine about and never continued the series because honestly, I just wasn't that interested. This is, I'm going to actually put this under meh. I didn't really think it was anything worth, talking about. It was kind of just fine. I know a lot of people love this series, but I thought it was pretty boring. A Girl from the Well. Okay, so this is a YA horror book, and you can see from the cover that it looks very like The Ring like. This wasn't scary at all, and it was one of the most boring things I've ever read. So this is going under absolute trash. Like I don't get it. That's a really not good book. Glory O'Brien's History of the Future. This is another one like, oh my God, so boring and just such a weird story, like not in a good way. I'm gonna probably, I don't feel like this was trash, so I'm just gonna put it under meh. The Great Gatsby. So I reread this earlier this year with some of my book club kids, and I love this. This is one of my favorite classics. I am going to put it under new favorite, although, again, this was a reread, so it's not really a new favorite, but it's still definitely one of my favorite classics. I'm from Long Island, so, like, I think that plays into it a little bit, the fact that it takes place on Long Island. But yeah, this is like one that I have fond memories of reading when I was younger in high school, and that I've reread several times since then, and I still enjoy. The Hand on the Wall. This was the last in the Truly Devious series, and I don't know. This would fall somewhere between a favorite and a would recommend. I really enjoy the Truly Devious series, and I think it's one that I will reread at some point. But is it a favorite? I'm going to put it in will recommend. I do really love this series and like highly recommend it, but I don't know if I'd call it a favorite. Hate List, definitely would recommend. This was great. Again, not a favorite, but like great. Really, really liked it and would highly recommend. Like this was almost a 5-star book for me. Heartstopper. I really liked this book, but I don't know that it was anything like, I guess I would put this under, it's going to go somewhere between like forget and would recommend. I know people really love this series, and I did really enjoy it. Like I thought it was super cute, and I definitely would recommend it as a graphic novel if that's something you're looking for. I'll keep it under would recommend because I don't really feel like it's that forgettable. Her Every Fear by Peter Swanson. This is a mystery thriller. This was my first Peter Swanson, and I know he's like a really well-respected mystery thriller writer. I may have started with one that wasn't great, and I do intend to check out more of his books because this one, pretty forgettable. Pretty forgettable. I don't know. It was fine. Like I didn't dislike it. It was, I guess, enjoyable enough while I was reading it, but nothing special. Home Before Dark. Loved it. New favorite. I mean, this was my number one book of 2020. I just could not put this down. It was amazing. Loved everything about it. Horror Store. So this one is like about, it's very quirky. It's a Grady Hendrix book. It's one that doesn't get talked about as much as his other like newer books, but it's basically about this like haunted IKEA. It's not called IKEA, but it's about these people who work at this IKEA type store, and it's like haunted by these ghosts of this prison that used to be on the place where like they built it, on the land where they built it. And there were definitely some creepy, gory scenes in this. I thought it was pretty decent as a horror book, but honestly, this was pretty forgettable. I feel like I enjoyed it while I was reading it, but I don't know, not sticking with me as anything that will like stand out in my mind as a great horror. How to Love. I ranted about this, and this was my worst book of this year. So obviously this is absolute trash. Yeah, like probably, well, I mean, definitely the worst book I read this year. But oh my gosh, don't even pick it up. Even if you like romance, like I highly suggest avoiding this at all costs. The Hunting Party. So this is Lucy Foley's other mystery that I read earlier this year before the guest list. And again, I enjoyed it while I was reading it, but it was pretty forgettable. I feel like it's good for what it is. However, I think in comparison to the guest list, it's pretty subpar. I feel like if I hadn't read the guest list, I would maybe rank this higher, but because I'm comparing it to the guest list and I loved that book, I feel like this was kind of just a subpar version of it. I know you remember This was one of my most disappointing of this year. This was mainly because it was super hyped up by my students. And then when I finally got around to reading it, I went into it with really high expectations. This was kind of just meh. I don't think it was trashed. I think it was fine, but nothing impressive as a YA mystery thriller. Illegal is a graphic novel. So this one's a weird one because although my enjoyment of it was just kind of like mediocre, I feel like it is something I would recommend because I feel like it's an important story because it's about the refugee crisis. And so I feel like it's something that people should read, but like, I don't know, it was kind of forgettable, honestly. Like, would I recommend this to people who like graphic novels? Yes. Do I think it's an important story? Yes. But is it something that I'm going to like recommend years from now? Probably not. Okay. What do we got next? I'm thinking of ending things. This is a hard one. I think this is going to this falls somewhere between meh and absolute trash because I really genuinely did enjoy the first half of this book. I just feel like the latter 50% was trash. And so it's kind of weird because the whole book wasn't trash. I feel like I'm going to put this in trash. Just because I feel like when your story just like nosedives halfway through and like falls apart, like it just affects the quality of the entire story. Okay. Imagine Wanting Only This. This was a random graphic novel that I picked up from the library and it was just kind of meh. I think it was like a memoir and it was about her growing up and taking photos. She's like an artist. It was not that good. It was kind of just meh. Island and the Happily Ever After. I would probably put this under like new favorite or would recommend. Actually, I would probably put this under a new favorite. I feel like this is probably one of my favorite romance books I've ever read. So I would definitely classify it as a new favorite. It's Trevor Noah, Born a Crime. This is the young reader edition of the Trevor Noah memoir, which I read every year with like my students. And I reread it again with them last school year, but during 2020. And this is just one, I mean, obviously I would recommend it. I read it with my students every year. And so it's definitely something I would recommend. Is it a favorite? Not necessarily. I do think that the adult version is better. Obviously, I'm an adult, so I appreciate the more complex themes of the adult version. But I also feel like it's pretty well adapted for young readers. So I would recommend for sure. Jolly Foul Play. This is another one of the Murder is Bad Manners books and kind of forgettable, honestly. Enjoyable, but forgettable. Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I really didn't like this. I thought it was just kind of fine. I'm going to put it under meh. I think I did rate it like 3 stars, but the more time that passes, the more I realize that this just wasn't very good. City of Bones. This is the first in the Mortal Instruments series. We're going to put it under forgettable. I don't know. It just doesn't make it up to would recommend. It's fine. This whole series is just kind of fine. The Clockwork Angel books are better than these are. So like if you're looking to get into Mortal Instruments, I don't know that you necessarily have to read the Mortal Instruments, like the first series, but I guess for context, but like Clockwork Angel, like that series, The Infernal Devices, is better. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. This is a graphic novel that I read earlier this year. I went through a phase in the summer where I just read like a bunch of graphic novels because why not? I don't know. I was just in a mood. This was forgettable, honestly. Like it was enjoyable enough, but nothing impressive. Life of the Party. This is a poetry collection that I read for a reading challenge that I was doing. And I don't know. I don't remember much about it. I feel like I liked some of the poems. Poetry is weird because if it's a poetry collection, it's kind of like reading a short story collection in that like, if you don't like all of them, it's hard to rate it. And I feel like this definitely had some quality poems that I enjoyed, and I enjoy her as like a spoken word poet. I listened to this on audiobook, but Overall, it was just kind of forgettable. I don't know. Poetry doesn't really work for me. I feel like novels in verse I can get down with, but like when it comes to poetry collections, it's just not my thing. I don't like short story collections either. Okay, Misery by Stephen King. I really, really, really enjoyed this. It probably would have made my best books if I didn't have to like narrow down my Stephen King choices, just because I didn't want to have like a bunch of Stephen King in one category, so that I could be fair to other authors. This one was really good. Like, I definitely knew I was going to like it because it fits a lot of the tropes that I like a writer and it's horror and people being trapped together in an isolated situation, inclement weather, etc. It ticked off a lot of boxes, so like it was going to be a win for me anyways. But this is still something I would highly, highly recommend. I think this is one of Stephen King's best books that I've personally read. Mysterious Affair at Styles. Kind of forgettable. I enjoyed this and I appreciate it for what it is, which is the start of the Hercule Poirot series. I am going to continue with the series, but this first one was just kind of forgettable. It was fine. Is this one New Moon? I think this is New Moon. I might be mixing up these covers, but if this is New Moon, we're just going to pretend it is. This would go under... God, this is such a hard one. I genuinely enjoyed New Moon because I am such a like hardcore Jacob stan. Like, I love Jacob, and this book was almost entirely Jacob, and Edward wasn't in it at all, and so that made it wonderful. But I want to put it under We'll Probably Forget. I mean, yes, the Twilight story is somewhat, you know, in my mind because I've read it twice now, and it was a part of my establishment as a reader, I guess. But yeah, it was just kind of forgettable. I'm sure I won't think about it ever again. No Exit. So this is one I would recommend for what it is. Like, it's a good thriller. It definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's very like keeps you turning the pages, and it does what it sets out to do, which is to basically make you feel incredibly anxious the entire time. However, am I going to remember this a few years from now? Probably not. Yeah, this is just kind of like, it's something... I don't know. I mean, I would recommend it though. So I'm kind of like in between would recommend and will probably forget. But I feel like if I look at all the mysteries I've read, like this is one I'm not really going to remember. Then I read, Greta Thunberg's No One's Too Small to Make a Difference. I actually listened to this on audio, and it's basically just a collection of all of her speeches. So this is kind of hard to rate. I think I would recommend this if it's something you're interested in. Like, if you're interested in climate change and learning more about climate change, this is pretty good. It does get a little repetitive because they didn't edit anything. They basically just collected all of the speeches she's done. So obviously, like, she recycles some of her material. But I thought this was pretty quality as like a climate change book. And I really like Greta Thunberg. So I feel like this would fall under would recommend. None Shall Sleep, definitely would recommend. Not necessarily a favorite, but because there were some things that I didn't love, but definitely would recommend. Great book. Normal People. This was such a weird one. I know people are obsessed with this book. Like, it got so much hype, especially when the show came out, which I haven't seen. This was a really weird book. Like, I didn't know how to feel about it. Honestly, I felt a little uncomfortable at times when reading it because their relationship is just very weird. But I don't know. I feel like it was just kind of forgettable. I didn't dislike it, and I wouldn't put it in meh because I thought it was fine, but like, I don't know. I haven't thought about it since. I actually forgot I even read it this year. A Study in Emerald. This is like a graphic novel retelling, like fantasy retelling of A Study in Scarlet. Study in Scarlet. And it was meh. I don't know. It wasn't that good. It was just kind of like meh. I don't know. The last, I don't remember much about this. This was a book that I read over the summer, and it's like a dystopian thriller where like a bunch of people are stuck at this hotel at the end of the world because a nuclear war happened and they lose all contact, like the internet and phones, everything goes down, and they don't know if they're the last people left or not. I think this was just kind of forgettable. It was fine and enjoyable enough, but forgettable. Off Balance. So this is the Dominique Moceanu memoir. I was like obsessed with the Magnificent Seven. If you guys have any interest in gymnastics and know what I'm talking about. They were the women's gymnastics team at the Olympics in, God, what was it, 96, I think. And I was doing gymnastics at that time as a child, and I absolutely loved them. Like, they were like my idols, and I went to like see them live. They performed after the Olympics. And so I read this because Dominique Moceanu was like one of my favorite gymnasts when I was younger. And I don't know, it was not bad. Like, if you enjoy Dominique Moceanu or gymnastics, I thought it was interesting enough. It's definitely like very centered around the drama of her life. And so like, if you don't really have any interest in her as a person, like, you won't enjoy this. But I think this was just kind of forgettable. I was glad I read it, but I probably won't think about it ever again. Pet Cemetery. This was a weird one because I feel like I recognize this for what it is, and I think it's a quality horror novel, and I understand why people love this book. I didn't love it, but I still would recommend it. Yeah, I definitely still think this is like a Stephen King worth reading. Poison is Not Polite, another Murder is Bad Manners book. We'll probably forget. They're all going to just fall under that. Pumpkinheads is one I would recommend. I think this is a really cute graphic novel. It's definitely like not that, there's not a lot of substance to it, but it's like a cute, fun romance read. Punching the Air is a poetry book that I read recently. It's a novel in verse, and although this wasn't like my favorite thing that I've ever read, I definitely would recommend it because I think it's an important read. I think it exposes and discusses a lot of things about our justice system and racism in America that are important to discuss. And so I definitely think this is one I would recommend. Recursion by Blake Crouch. I did really enjoy this. However, I don't know. I feel like it's probably kind of forgettable. Like, I feel like I couldn't put it down when I was reading it, but now, like, when I look back, I don't remember pretty much anything about the story. I remember like little bits and pieces, but I feel like this was again like one where it was like when I was experiencing it, it was cool, but I don't know. Don't really remember anything about it. Red, White, and Royal Blue would recommend for sure. I think this is a really quality romance, and I don't even really like romances, so I definitely think this is one worth reading and could be enjoyed even by those that are not like hardcore romance fans. Definitely worth the hype. Like, this is a hyped up book that deserves the hype. Running is a YA contemporary that I read with one of my classes with my book club elective. It was fine. I'm going to put this under, we'll probably forget. I feel like in theory, like it was good when I was reading it, but it's pretty forgettable as a YA contemporary, nothing special. Okay, Secrets of Winterhouse. So I read this entire series this year, the whole Winterhouse series, and I really enjoyed them. So I'm going to put them under would recommend. I'm not sure where the others are. Oh, here they are. Yeah, this whole series would definitely recommend. Like, this is a quality middle grade series for sure. Like mystery / fantasy, definitely worth picking up. Seraphina and the Black Cloak. Just kind of meh. I don't know. I feel like this is a situation where this just wasn't my thing, but I feel like kids could enjoy it. It is a middle grade book, so again, not written for me, but I felt like I just wasn't into the topics. Like, I wasn't into like animal shapeshifter fantasy, but I know a lot of kids who are, so I feel like this could be enjoyable to certain people. Sheets is, I don't know. I mean, again, I would recommend this as a graphic novel. Like, it's a good graphic novel, but I feel like it was kind of forgettable. Like, I don't know that I'll ever think about it again after this year. Shout is Lori Halsey Anderson's memoir that is basically talking about her real life experiences with rape that inspired her writing Speak. Speak is one of my all-time favorite YA books. Like, that was one of the first YA books that I really loved and got me into the genre. But Shout was, I don't know, it's written in verse, so that didn't really work for me. I feel like it was just kind of, it's somewhere between meh and we'll probably forget. I'm going to put it under we'll probably forget. I don't feel like it was that bad. It just was very forgettable. Like, I don't remember anything about it. C.M. Martinez and the Beginning of Everything. This was pretty bad. I don't know if it was trash, but it was definitely meh. It was like, I don't know. I had such high expectations for this because I thought it was going to have some great discussions on race and immigration, but it ended up just kind of being a hot mess, honestly. Okay, we're getting there, guys. All right. Spinning is a graphic memoir that I would definitely recommend. I thought this was really well done and really interesting. It discusses her life as like an elite figure skater. Stranger Things, this was like a random, again, graphic novel I picked up when I was like on my graphic novel kick during the summer. And this was just kind of meh. It was fine. I think if you enjoy Stranger Things, it's like a quick, easy read and it's fun, but it really didn't add anything to the story for me. I just thought it was fine. Such a fun age. So this is one that I feel like was getting so much hype and people were like loving this book. And I don't know. I thought it was fine. I think it was just kind of forgettable. Like, I didn't think it did anything that impressive. And I don't know if I would necessarily say like, yes, for sure, read this, because I don't think it was that good. But it also wasn't like meh. It was fine. It was enjoyable while I was reading it. The Only Good Indians, I would definitely recommend as a horror book. I think that it's worth your time if you enjoy horror. I think Stephen Graham Jones does some really interesting things with the horror genre. The Shadows. You know, I actually forgot I read this, and like when I saw it on my shelf, I forgot I owned it. Like, this is such a forgettable book. Like, nothing about it is interesting. I actually feel like the more time that passes since I've read this, I feel like this is so meh. Like, it just was not good. The Shining would definitely recommend, like, for sure. I know you guys can't see all of this, sorry. Yeah, The Shining is a quality Stephen King, a quality horror book, and like a must read, I think, for horror fans, for sure. The Silent Patient was, so this is another case where like the twist ruined it for me. I really enjoyed it while I was reading it, for the most part, almost until the end, because it's very like page turning and thrilling, and it really keeps you guessing. It has like these really short chapters, and I just thought it was very well paced. However, the twist I thought was absolute trash and didn't make any sense. And so the whole book wasn't trash, so I'll just put it under meh. Yeah, I don't know. It was fine, but like the twist at the end kind of ruined it, because it makes you question everything that's already happened. And that's like why even though it was like the last like chapter, it still ruined it for me. An Unwanted Guest was meh. I wasn't impressed. I don't really get it. I thought this was something I would like, but it was pretty disappointing. 10, also meh. Kind of just, I mean, these were like in my disappointing books for this year. Like, I just feel like this was pretty subpar as a YA thriller. The Invited, I would recommend this, I think, as a horror book. I thought it was pretty worthwhile. The Test was forgettable, honestly. This is a novella, a sci-fi novella that reads a lot like a Black Mirror episode, except I love Black Mirror, and I thought this was just kind of okay. I'm not like, I don't have a huge success with novellas. I just think they're too short for me. And so like, I don't have time to get invested in the story. But this, I felt like I should have liked more than I did. And I thought there were some interesting things being brought up, but it's also about the British citizenship test, which I have no context for. So I feel like if I had that context or I lived in Britain, I might have enjoyed this more than I did. There's Someone Inside Your House was, I don't know. It was just kind of meh, I guess. It's somewhere between meh and forgettable. I'm going to put it under meh because it wasn't, I don't know. The more time passes since I've read it, like the more I realize it just wasn't very good. They Call Us Enemy is definitely one I would recommend. I feel like this is, again, like graphic novels are not my favorite genre, so it's really hard for me to like, I don't think I've ever given a 5-star to a graphic novel. But this is definitely one that I think is important and is quality as a graphic novel. To Stay Alive, this was one, again, I read for my book club elective. Some of the kids were interested in it. It's a novel in verse about the Donner Party, and it sounded really intriguing because I find the story of the Donner Party to be intriguing, but this was... this is going to sound weird, but like I wanted to read this because of the cannibalism aspect, because I just think that's really interesting that people would be like drawn to or like pushed to the point where they would eat other people. There's the psychology behind it is really interesting, but it wasn't really about that. It was like the most of the book was just them traveling in the snow and not being able to survive. So it was like pretty boring. I'm going to say this was just kind of meh. It wasn't trash, but it was kind of meh. Tunnel of Bones is the other. It's a sequel to City of Ghosts, and I think the same. It's just kind of forgettable. I did like this one better than the first one, but overall, forgettable. Turn of the Key, I would recommend this. I feel like it was a pretty good thriller. I wasn't thrilled with the twist. I didn't love it, but I felt like I could definitely see other people loving it. So I do think like it's something that I would recommend as a thriller. Turn of the Screw, trash, absolute trash. I don't understand. Like even as a classic, I don't get it. Why has this stuck around for so long? 12 was a novella within the Natural series, and I'm going to put that under would recommend because I thought it was just as good as the other books. Like it is just as bingeable and good as every other book in that series. Twilight. We're going to put Twilight under meh. You know, it is what it is. It's obviously not quality literature. And the first book I didn't hate as much as the third book, but I also don't think it was very good. The Unexpected Everything, also meh. This is another like Morgan Matson YA contemporary, and I just wasn't impressed. It was super long and pretty boring. Like not much happened. And I didn't even think the romance was that good. So meh. We Speak in Storms was pretty bad. This book was like painful to get through, but I don't know that it's trash. I'm going to put it under meh as well. It was just kind of boring. It wasn't like it did anything wrong. It was just not interesting. Woman in Cabin 10, I would recommend. I think The Woman in Cabin 10 is, again, a quality thriller by Ruth Ware that people could enjoy. In the Hall with the Knife. I don't know. This is like somewhere between a, no, I can't scroll. Hold on. This is somewhere between a would recommend and a, this won't let me scroll up, a would recommend and a new favorite. I'm going to put it under new favorite. I really, really enjoyed this book, and it's definitely just because I'm obsessed with Clue. So, you know, definitely a biased opinion, but it was a new favorite for sure. The Dreamers, I read this like during the reading rush, and I remember very little about it except that it was like really slow moving. I'm going to put this under forgettable. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't that good either. The Fever was another Megan Abbott book that I read really recently, and I would recommend this. I think this brings up some pretty interesting conversations about gender and teenage girls. I think this is pretty good for what it is. The Gallery, literally forgot I even read this. I couldn't tell you what this is about. Like I would have to look up the synopsis because I literally remember nothing about this at all. So this is like, I don't know. I mean, definitely forgettable, obviously, but I'm going to put it under meh. Like, I don't even remember liking it that much when I was actually reading it. The Grown Up, was very, it was very forgettable. I don't think it was necessarily bad enough to put in the meh category, but I also don't think it was that good. The guest list was really good. Would this be a new favorite? I don't know. I'm going to put the guest list under would recommend. I definitely really, really liked this, and I think I gave it like a 4.5, but I wouldn't call it a favorite. And then the Institute would definitely recommend for sure. Is it a new favorite? No, but I definitely think it's worth reading. Okay, so here we are. Here is my final ranking. Not too bad. 5 books that I would consider favorites. A decent amount in the would recommend category. But as you can see, I had a pretty like meh forgettable year as far as reading goes. I think this pretty accurately represents my reading year. So here's to hoping that 2021 is a better year in general, but also a better year of reading, because there were way too many meh and forgettable books on this list. Well, that wraps up my very, very long tier ranking. If you stuck around this long, then thank you so much because that was a really long video. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you like this video, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already. I will see you guys probably tomorrow. I am trying to get a vlog uploaded that didn't work last week, but if I can't get it uploaded, then it's not going to be till Monday. But I will definitely see you guys in my next Vlogmas video very soon.